Hey everybody, welcome to Randi Sands and the Mediumship crew. And tonight we have another topic that was kind of out of the schedule because Michelle, yep, Michelle wanted to do this topic, and I thought that it was actually amazing timing. And the topic is, how can you bring more love, compassion, and understanding into your life? And I thought it was a really good topic because we just lost John Lewis to the spirit world. And he was an amazing man. You know, he was not afraid to stand up. He was not afraid to make noise. He was not afraid to cause good trouble, but he did it with love in his heart and without violence. And that, to me, is the vision of spiritualism. It really is. And then I had two incidences on social media where some people said, a couple pretty awful things to me. And thinking about John Lewis, I was able to have the love, I was able to have the compassion, so I didn't lash out. Now, the one thing I didn't have was a whole lot of understanding, but what I realized is I really don't need to understand. As long as I have the love and the compassion, I can process through it. And then the final thing that really made me think that our decision was a really good one was the fact that today, up in Florida, and up in Central Florida, I should say, there was a young man working at a Burger King. And I guess the lady became upset over the length of time the drive-through was taking. And according to what I read, she became belligerent, and he refunded her money and asked her to leave. Well, she came back with a man, and the man got a hold of him and started fighting, and it was broken up. Well, the man went to his vehicle, got a gun, came back and shot and killed him. So there's a lot going on right now. And unfortunately, people are reacting. We've all done it. I mean, not to that degree, thank goodness. But I wanted to talk, and I wanted all of us to exchange ideas and thoughts and even questions, whatever it is, on how we can bring more love, compassion, and understanding into our lives. Because bouncing things off each other, you never know when something is going to click for somebody. Can we all agree?
Mhm.
Okay. So, Michelle, let's start with you, aka Jack, since this was kind of your idea, and let's get some of your thoughts, and then let's open up.
Okay. Um, well, I think like what you said was for a lot of people, um, the love and compassion part, I think may be the easier of the three. Um, and I think the understanding part people forget about. I think they get too caught up in about trying to be right, um, and not understanding, or listening to what the other person or people are saying. And I also wanted to say that, the understanding part I don't necessarily think has to be that you understand the other person, what the other person's philosophy is, or what the other person is saying necessarily, just so long as you can try and understand where that person is in their journey, or where they're at, so that that can help you kind of gauge, what your response should be. Does that make sense?
I agree, because I always felt like I had to understand where they were coming from. I had to be able to wrap my brain around it. if that makes sense. And I've come to realize that I really don't. All I have to understand is that this is another spiritual being that I should have love for, because we're all from the same place. We're all cut from the same cloth, maybe a different corner, but we're all cut from the same cloth. And compassion is something that we should all have for each other, because we would want somebody to be compassionate of us. And we all grow at different rates and speeds. And, you know, somebody that may be up here today, this person may pass them tomorrow, and this person may, you know, we keep going like this. And if we're a little more progressed today, we have to remember that that person can surpass us tomorrow until we catch back up again. And we want them to have the same love and kindness for us. So with that said, what I'd like to do is I'd like to open the floor, but do me a favor, guys. If you, when you want to talk, please just raise your hand so we don't talk all over each other. But I'm really excited to hear everybody's thoughts on this.
I think too that it's also important to kind of acknowledge that it's not our job to convince somebody or sway somebody to our point of view necessarily. Either.
That's a really good point, because I think we're all guilty of that. I know I have been, and I know that I have been at least once or twice lately. You know, I mean, it's truth, you know, and if we tell the truth and we're not afraid to be honest about it, then, you know, we're growing. So yes, Tammy, I saw your hand up, honey.
Yeah, I was in a Zoom group right before this, and a friend of mine, she channels Archangel Michael, and we were able to ask questions. So I find it very disheartening for myself when people come and ask me, what can I do to lift myself out of this depression? And I may give them, you know, I can only speak from my own experience. So I tell them what I do to raise my vibration, whether it be like working out or whatever, to get the endorphins and everything going so that your energy level heightens. And a lot of times I get hit with, well, easier said than done. And then they like drop it, right? So my question to Archangel Michael is, what can I do for these people to help them more? And my answer was that I can't help everybody.
Mm-hmm. And you know, that's really good. That's a really good point. And I want you to tell us what it is you do to raise your energy. But before you do, I've got to tell you something that really clicked for me in all honesty in the last couple weeks. And what stopped me from zapping my energy so much is I realized I don't have to care about everything that I hear and see. I don't have to. You know, and I found that my energy level was a lot higher once, like I would see something on social media and I'd be, okay, I don't have to care about that. Now, I'm not going to tell you I don't get caught up every now and then, but most of the time now I can look at it and say, okay, I don't have to care about that, and keep scrolling. And it's very freeing. So Tammy, what do you do?
Like I say, I do things that raise my endorphin level, which gives you that natural high, right? Like exercise or dancing or just like bebopping around outside. Yesterday, I just gathered a bunch of sticks and it had a huge bonfire, but I must have bent over like 200 times. By the time I came in the house, I was totally exhausted, but I felt really good. You know, my mindset was really good. And getting back to not having to get caught up in other people's thing, you know, whatever. I told you a while back that I had to unfriend somebody from Facebook. I'm one of these people that I'll try and if somebody gets under my skin, first of all, I want to know why it bothers me. Okay, so I kind of look inside myself to see what the trigger is. But then I don't have to react to them. I can just turn around and walk away and choose to just leave that alone and not to rehash over it, you know. So,
Fabulous.
like I say, I took a 2-day course with Lisa Williams, and she says before she channels that she'll go backstage and she'll like sing or she'll jump
She does.
around or she does something to get her vibration up, you
She
know. And
sings every time she goes on stage. She'll sing in the back, or she'll listen to music she really likes. When did you take the
right,
class with her?
probably about 5 years ago,
Oh, okay.
she was at Lilydale, and I stayed in the Dale for 3 days and did the 2-day course.
I've
The
taken
advanced,
lots of classes with her. She's amazing.
yeah, she is.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
Okay, here we go.
When you start out with okay, here you go. Now let me sit
I'm
back
like-
in my chair.
This is serious, but it's like hysterically funny as well, I think. I think I'm a fairly sympathetic, empathetic person. And one of my good friends who is in Tammy's meditation and message class turns to me at one point and goes, you have to be more compassionate. And I was like, so
Oh
so I'm
my.
like, I thought I was, and so I'm like, what do I do with that? It's like, am I not? And if I'm not, if you think perhaps that you are not because you're trusting this person to be telling you the truth as they see it, where does that come from? And I think for me personally, if I'm not, either I've become the crotchety old lady, or I try to speak the truth. I told my son once, and I told a very good friend of mine, I said, I will never lie to you. I will tell you the truth. I'm not going to try and hurt you, but I'm not going to, I'm not going to say, oh, no, that doesn't matter. Or, oh, no, you're not addicted. I'm trying to use things that are sort of ridiculous to get the
Right.
point out. And do you then, if that's the case, do you then not address things? And is that better? I don't know. I'm just sort of like, so I thought I was, and she's saying I have to be more, which means you're lacking. I don't know. I don't know where to go with that.
Well, my first thing is, and let me try to put this in a way that is loving and kind.
And compassionate.
Yes. I think when we try to judge somebody else's levels, then maybe we're the ones that are out of bounds. And, because isn't that in a way passing judgment on somebody? Which we're all guilty of doing. Don't let anybody tell you that they don't ever do it, because I'm here to tell you if they do, let me pass judgment for a minute, they're lying. Because we all do it in some way, shape, or form. We're spiritual beings, but we're still having that human experience. And we have certain triggers, but I don't think anybody should at least not put it like that. Maybe say, it might be something to look at to try to put yourself in their position, or look at it from their point of view. But to say that you don't have enough compassion, who are they to say that they do? And I don't know this person, so I'm not trying to judge. I'm just talking very generalized.
She's very plain spoken, so I think she believed it, and I believe that she thinks of me as a friend. So I must have keyed something in her, but I would just sort of like, okay, so I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I think I see you, Michelle. Hold on a second. I think that if it was me, and it's not, but if it was, I think I would take a look at it. And one thing that my aunt used to say to me is take an honest look. And if it's something that you think is truthful, then work on it. If it's something that you think, not that they were trying to lie, but if it's something that you feel that you're not guilty of, then discard it. And don't allow it to affect you, because then it's interfering with your energy vibration.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Michelle.
I was just going
I
to say,
saw you, honey.
I think it's in that particular case, it would be good to kind of take in consideration the context in which it was said, maybe. And, you know, everybody's perception is different because everybody's got different experiences. So what she perceives as you not having enough compassion could really not, could be you do have enough, just her perception of what enough is different than what you feel, you know, yours is.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be, you know, maybe you say to her, well, you know, the other day when you said you thought I needed more compassion, what did you mean? Why did you say that? How do you feel that I'm not compassionate enough? Or, you know,
Okay.
just to kind of put a gauge on it so that you can, because if you have no idea where she's coming from, it's going to be hard for you to kind of tell, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not it's something that you feel you need to work on or not.
Yeah. Thank you.
And you see, this is why she's part of the crew, because I was just sitting here patiently waiting for her to finish, and I was going to make the same suggestion. We can finish each other's sentences when we want to. Yes, Carol, honey, I saw you.
So I was kind of gonna, I guess I'll say tailgate off of that. That's where my mind was kind of going with the whole, if I don't understand where somebody's coming from, whether it be a direct statement to myself, like you don't have enough compassion, or if it's a statement that I overhear or oversee, I guess, with social media, where I'm not sure where that person is coming from, I personally like to kind of take a step back first and kind of identify with it as best as I can. And then if I can't, reaching out to that person for more information. Because kind of like what Michelle was saying, you don't fully know what somebody is meaning and or saying unless you say, hey, what did you mean? Why did you say this? You stepped on my toe when you said that, and that other person could be like, oh my goodness, I didn't even like think of it that way, especially if like you said, she's a plain spoken person. I know that I have friends that are kind of plain spoken, and when I first got to know them, I'm like, gosh, that was rude. And then I like talk to them and they're like, I didn't realize that's just how I talk. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's just a little bit of understanding, I guess, part of the topic here, but just kind of reaching out and saying, hey, I didn't like that. Do you have a reason as to why you said that, and can you elaborate?
It's true, because I've been guilty of that. Because I will just, Michelle, who, by the way, we call Jack. No, I'm joking. We do, though. She'll tell you, I say what's on my mind. And there can be times when I don't necessarily realize how it's going to sound. I don't mean it bad. I don't. But sometimes when you're straight to the point, you know, there's a million ways you can say something, say the same thing a million ways. And for some of us that are just kind of direct, sometimes we don't realize that if we take a second and rephrase it, it would make all the difference in the world. And I try to be very cognizant of that because, you know, when I was younger, I said, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. Well, it took me, probably 50 years to realize it's not sugarcoating. It's saying it in a way that somebody can be receptive and you can have a conversation,
Yeah.
and that you can be compassionate and loving about it. You know, you can say it a lot of ways. You don't have to just be like a bull in a china closet. So I agree.
Thank you.
You're welcome,
Thank
honey.
you.
Anyone else?
Add something?
Yes, please.
Well, for Jennifer, she hurt your feelings by saying that, but maybe if you asked her, because her perception of what you said or what the context was that made it seem as if you weren't compassionate, it may be a perception thing. Because I mean, I'm one of those plain, say it right out, probably stomp on people's feelings, and I don't mean to. I mean, it's like I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings. I might say, oh, and it's almost what my dad used to call it throwaway line. It's like, oh, you have no compassion. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But if you can't come back and say, I'm not sure why you think that, you just hurt my feelings by saying that, because I feel I'm a compassionate person. Maybe you can help them understand where you come from and how you express your compassion. 'Cause
I appreciate that. It was actually, she was giving me a reading. So she said it was from spirit. And I was a little hurt, but I think I was more surprised because you have an image of yourself and who you think you are and who you try to be. And I'm like, I would have heard other things, but that I was really surprised to hear. So I will go back and sort of ask her to elaborate if she recalls. But it was, I don't know that it was if she saw something, she didn't explain it, but she said, you really need to be more compassionate. And I'm like, okay.
Since it was a reading, it could also be a misinterpretation of what she was getting.
That's right, because the information's never wrong, but the interpretation can be. Mm-hmm. And, I'm really glad that you said that, we're on the inside looking out, because we all have a perception of ourselves. I remember my grandmother, who I loved with every fiber of my being. She had a very different image of herself than other people did. And I've known a couple other people like that. And what it made me realize is that I don't know that I want to say that we can fool ourselves into thinking that we're different than we are, but we're not seeing what other people are seeing. Mm-hmm. So I really try to work at, because I've realized that, I really try to work at seeing what other people see. And, it's not always fun. It's not always fun to see what other people may see, but it gives us a point to start working mm-hmm. on ourselves when we can be that honest. And I'm not saying I'm the most honest person with myself either, because, I don't want to make it sound like I'm all that bag of chips and a cherry Coke, because I'm just like everybody else. I'm a work in progress. And we all realize different things, in our journey. And that's just one thing that I've noticed, so that I try to work on. And it's not always pleasant what you see when you're really being honest with yourself, and what you have to work on. Anyone else? Yes, Tammy.
Getting back to the joy and the love that we were talking about with the COVID thing and being sad, right? Jennifer, she called me about 2 weeks ago, and she just says, how are you doing? And I said, well, to tell you the truth, I said, I'm not a depressed person. I don't want to go out and hang myself, but I'm sad, and it's so like foreign to me, because I'm generally not that, and she says, wow, I've been feeling the same way, and I said, it's like I have so many things that I want to do and that I'm not doing them. I'm sitting thinking about the things I should be doing and not doing them because there's a sadness over me and I don't know how to take this. And she says, yeah, I know, I haven't done the same thing. And I said, people have asked me to do meditations and I really haven't felt like it. You know, I just haven't been in that like spiritual mindset to do it. And
Right.
she says, well, maybe you just need to do it. And she was so right. You know, I ended up doing the meditation, even though it got screwed up, it got half chopped off. So I had to do it in two parts, right in the middle. But boy, when I got done, just because I'm channeling spirit made my whole outlook totally different. You know, when you channel the meditations, it's just spirit working through you, and but I'm also receiving the goodness and the love that I'm also channeling, you know. So I thank her so much for bringing that to my attention, that I just needed to do it. And she says, yeah, she works with real estate, and she says, yeah, I haven't really felt, you know, checked my emails and caught up with people or anything like that. And she says, so maybe I need to do that too. And I think she did. And it does. When you have somebody else kind of bring something to your attention, maybe that you need to do, that you're so caught up in the sadness, right, that you forget of how the things are that actually bring you out of that sadness. And definitely the meditation works, you know, or for me anyways, to do the meditations. Like I say, I just get that spirit energy. It's pure love and light. And, you know, I feel like, you know, you bring the white light down through the crown of your head and fill your whole body with light. And how can you feel bad after that, you know? So I thank her for that, for bringing that to my attention, that I just needed to do it. You know, just like Nike, just do it.
Right. Does anybody live near Tammy?
Pardon me?
How
You do?
close?
Could you please go to her house and make sure she doesn't have any ropes? I'm just joking. I'm
But
just
she's got to have ropes out there somewhere. She's got those donkeys, and you know you got to tie them up once in a while.
I got to go see them.
They're beautiful.
love-
Yep.
I love donkeys.
When you come to,
We're headed
sure.
out that way next year, so we'll have to swing by
definitely,
and check that.
definitely. It's a date.
Yes, yes. Anybody else?
I do.
Yes.
Oh, no, I just like, I live nearby. And
Oh,
it's a great place to go. It's a great place to go.
When I
Well,
need
good.
to take a little forest bath, I go out to Tammy's. When I'm getting into that sadness, I need to get out of the city. Like, Tammy, I'm going to stop in. I need eggs.
I need eggs.
Eggs.
Yep.
It's a good excuse.
Anyone else?
I wanted to talk a little bit about, 'cause
Okay.
the original question is, how do we show love and compassion and understanding during times like this? One of the first things I thought about when you started talking about it is, I realized something I read today said that Buffalo has got an increase in shootings and crime, and there seems to be an awful lot of crime going on. And I know it's not just Buffalo. There's other cities that are going through higher elevations of crime during this time. And I understand, you know, that, you know, we're all stressed out, you know, some probably more than others. But I find for myself ways that I can bring more love and compassion and understanding into my life. One of them is going out to Tammy's and walking in the woods and getting connected to nature. And for me, when I start feeling all that sadness and all this energy that's not right now, if I go walk out into my garden, pull a couple weeds, I'm bringing love to Mother Earth, which brings love to me. The other day, I was out there and a woman walked by, and she started talking to me through the fence, and she said she was from Burma, and I couldn't quite understand exactly what she was saying, but she was complimenting the garden that I got going on. And she was attracted to one of the flowers out there. And I found myself offering her a pot full of plants that I have. And I said, there's like 3 or 4 different plants in here. So there was offering love, giving love, something that I love to do, and just offering it to a complete stranger made me feel good. And then she started admiring one of the plants out there, and it was sitting by itself. So I went out there and I dug it up and I said, here, put this in there, but you got to get this, in dirt right away. So I just like made her day. And to me, that made my day to do something so random like that. And I find that there's a lot of that going on where if I can get out of self long enough and get out of my ego and what's in it for me long enough and do things like that, random acts of kindness, I just notice that raises my vibration and attracts more of that to me. When I can give that out, it comes back to me, and it's really great. Yeah. So that's how I get more love and understanding in my life. I mean, there's times where I've said to myself, I lack, I'm going to say, empathy. Where I was involved in a relationship for 20 years, and towards the end of the relationship, if my partner was going through something, I really didn't care anymore. And it was like, that's not me. But I just think that what I had been through emotionally with all the losses, I just wasn't available anymore at all. And so, I don't know, maybe I do lack it. I don't know. Because sometimes I feel there are situations where I can just turn my head and walk away and not let it get in me. And then there's other times where I just pick up everything and it's affecting everything, like not too long ago, there was a situation where there was a couple up here, I guess from Florida, and their son was found on a porch, and it turned out that the parents were burned in a car. And I was like, that affected me so bad because that's within spitting distance of where that car is. I walked back there with my dog before, and just like things like that energetically that are sad, I can sometimes bring in and bring me down really, really bad. So sometimes I just kind of have to step away, which I've been doing a lot lately with the COVID stuff. It's like I was in the beginning listening to every news break, everything, and taking it all in and keeping track of the numbers. And one day I was like, okay, I got to be done with this. It's like, it was just getting overwhelming. I mean,
It's when you're sitting there with your notepad and you're each day writing the numbers.
So I don't need to know everything, and as a person that went to school to be a journalist, I like to know everything, so it's like I follow WBN, I follow, the radio station out of town. It's like I follow all these things on Twitter. So it's like I don't avoid it completely. I know what's going on, but I don't have to be stuck in front of that TV and stuck on my phone all the time, because it'll bring you down eventually. So I need to get back out there in nature, and that's what brings love to me.
Absolutely. And thank you for
you.
sharing. Anyone else?
Hello.
Yes.
So I usually I don't go outside a whole lot, but I see my neighbors walking their dogs, or just taking walks down the street. So I've been making myself go out more and, do weeding. I have a couple of lilac trees that took me like 5 years to get them to actually grow. So I had to go and weed them the other day and clean that up. So when you're out there on a nice day, you see a lot of your neighbors. So it's nice just to see other people and say hello to them. So that kind of brings me up and makes me feel better too.
You said you don't go out much, and I instantly pictured you with shutting the curtains and peeking. Hands. Let me see who had hands up. Tammy, did you have a hand up?
No, huh?
Oh, okay.
I was just, yeah. I was just moving.
Anyone else? Okay, so I'm going to tell you guys what's been getting my goat lately. I've come to realize that for me, COVID was one trigger because we've lost people already. And when I see people saying it's a hoax and whatnot, I think what it was doing is it was taking me back to that raw loss, if that makes sense. And thinking like, oh my God, I've got to say something because they could be putting out information that somebody else could see and potentially put them in a bad position. And it was really, I didn't necessarily realize it in the moment, but it was really affecting me. The social injustices going on, you know, really affected the empath in me, because we're all created from the same place. So, you know, that was hard for me. And we should all be judged by our merits or lack thereof and nothing else. And another big one that was getting me, so I had three, was, and we're not going to get into political views because it really doesn't matter. But what was getting me was just that. And I had to stop and ask myself in the last couple days, why was this such a trigger for me? And it was fear. It was fear over where the country may or may not be heading. And so I had to ask myself, why am I fearful? Well, I was fearful for the generations behind us. You know, not for me so much, because, you know, I'm already at a certain age, you know, but what about the youngsters just coming up? And then I realized, you know, everything goes according to universal plan. And there really isn't much we can do to change that plan, except to ride with it and to let it play out so that whatever it's meant to do happens. And for me, that was very freeing, you know, to realize why the COVID thing was bothering me, to realize the political thing, because now it's in the last day or two, it's not bothering me the way it used to. Because now I'm like, oh, universal law, just let it happen. You know, the injustice, okay, that the social injustice, that still bothers me a little bit, and it probably will for a little bit. But, you know, I'll process through it, just like we all do. So let me ask you guys, have you guys found your triggers? The things that might make you, well, not make you, but the things that might, what's the word I'm trying to use? Have you lean towards losing that love, compassion, and understanding in the moment? Yes, Tammy.
Yeah, on Facebook, a friend of mine just happened to make a statement about where we're at right now with our government. And so I just kind of put down a little statement. Well, somebody came back at me with like daggers and, you know, so I didn't react. I didn't react at all because I already put my statement out of what I thought personally, because I'm another person that just speaks my mind. Never to hurt anybody or anything like that, just my own opinion. And this guy came back just bombarding me. And not only did he like answer once, but he answered like 8 different times because I wasn't responding, right? There's some people out there that just want to trigger you and get into like an argument over it. You know, I didn't want to argue with the fella. He has the right to believe what he wants to believe, and I have the right to believe what I want to believe. And I don't need to engage him, but he just couldn't let it go. So I just had to block the conversation, you know, just so I didn't have to see what else he was going to add on. So as far as I know, it could be 20 comments long, you know, and he's got to be stewing because I'm not reacting, right?
I got suckered into a couple of those.
I just stop.
Oh, anyone else? Yes. Yes.
What concerns me, what my trigger is sort of similar to what Tammy was doing, that whether or not I agree, I still think we should in this country be able to express an opinion as long as it's not a personal attack on someone. You know, I believe this or I believe that. And then when people are shut down altogether, it shows me how angry people are. And I think I see that manifested in a lot of different ways, like when people are driving or when you're shooting someone at the takeout, you know, at the fast food place. Oh my God. You know, it's like, what if we can't talk to each other? I don't know where we are anymore.
You know, I had to laugh because just the thought of somebody shooting somebody at the fast food takeout because the line took too long. It's like life is more precious and more valuable than 10 minutes. And, you know, I agree because, you know, I'm honest and I'll tell you. And, you know, I've gotten into a couple of things where, you know, it was, for lack of anything better, a pissing match, you know, and it's like, whoa, you know, I think I need a V8, you know, we need to stop this. What's going on here?
Right.
I mean, I had somebody turn to me and say, "Step back, Satan." And, you know, I got to the point where I started seeing humor in it, you know, and like Tammy, she just kept saying it over and over and over and over. And I'm like, do you have anything else to say? You know, but we all get caught up in it because we allow, without even realizing it, because in the moment you don't even realize it, where that human emotional side steps in front of the spiritual, you know, it goes into the forefront. And for me, what I've learned here lately from all this is I may not catch myself before it happens, but I'm getting really good at catching myself quicker and quicker and quicker. So for me, that's spiritual growth in my mind. You know what I mean?
And it helps when I go, what are you doing? Why are you letting, why are you letting that get, why are you expending energy on that?
And why are you letting it get to you? And yeah, all those things. Anybody else have any triggers they've realized lately? Yes.
Life triggers me, but
Breathing.
Yeah, breathing, smiling, everything. Ugh. No. Oh, I know. I've been trying to like keep this image in my mind. Like when you said about that step back, Satan, it's like to do that Care Bear shoot the love energy.
Oh, yeah.
Because I saw this little cartoon, but it's like, you know, just stand there and just shoot love at them and just poof, you know, like shoot them back in a kind, loving, compassionate way, of course. I find that people, they trigger me, but when they're like coming at you, you know, like right in your face, that's kind of when I can get really clear and quiet and like, because it just doesn't matter. I agree. We need to be able to have a conversation without getting ugly, without calling names, without being mean spirited, and like really descending into nothingness when you're if you want to have the conversation and you want to make a change, you want to make a difference, you have to be able to hear the other person
Yeah.
and work with them from both sides. And America's just not doing that, in general. I mean, lots of people do, but
No.
in general, it seems to like going and shooting somebody at Burger King or wherever it was. That's just whack, because that man wasn't even involved in the original wait time or part of the discussion about whatever happened. That's somebody just going out looking for something to be triggered about. And there's so many things that's just going to trigger us naturally. That's just insanity.
You know what, though? Maybe, just maybe, and this is my thought process, because I have gotten caught up, like I said. And, I wish I could say, with the step back Satan thing, that I shot the Care Bear. Instead, my response was, Satan doesn't exist. You know that, right?
So that's a good thing, though. Yeah, to say.
Well, that just...
I would have shot the,
That just started getting on fire there.
that just got the ball rolling faster. But, I started thinking about it. Maybe, just maybe, all of this in the world is going on to teach us all of this.
Well, I'm sure that we have lessons to learn. This just seems really harsh.
But what I'm saying is maybe it's all going on to get us back to a point, for us all to learn to get back to a point where we can have civil conversations, where we can hear each other, where
I think
we can have healthy
I
debates.
don't know that we ever had that.
I think we did
More now.
decades back.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying it was perfect, but I think it was a lot better than it is now. I could be wrong, but it just seems that way to me.
Don't you think back then people respected each other more?
Yep.
I think a lot of things were different. I think kids were brought up with more respect. I think our foods were a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
Our food chains are pretty polluted. I think there was a lot of things different. And I think that just in general, people had, if a family was in trouble decades ago, the community would come together and make sure they had food and what have you. And it got to a point where it's like, well, that's their problem. And I just started thinking maybe this is to bring us back to that, because there's going to be a lot of people out there that need help.
Yeah.
And, the government, we can't count on. So we all have to help each other. We have to help everybody. And so this might be a lesson for all of us to bring us to a better spiritual place when it's all said and done. Like we're having our bad behaviors and we're getting, our foot stuck in the door, so to speak, here and there. But we're recognizing them and we're working on them. And maybe I could be wrong, but I am hopeful that this is so that we all learn to be better and do better. And, I find it coincidental that John Lewis passed when he did. And maybe that's a even bigger sign for us to be mindful, to be better and do better. Anyone else?
I'll make a quick little comment. We're doing a series now at Unity. We're like 6 weeks in now, and it's titled Awakening. And we've been covering some topics that kind of like quantum physics and stuff like that. And this week we're kind of like talking about the cycles of time and space. And Greg Braden was talking about how the cycle in the universe and the way the things do go seem to cycle through, and I don't know, it's hard for me to explain everything he said, but like something will trigger a cycle, And by putting these numbers into a calculator, he was able to figure out cycles such as 9/11 and 9/11 and the World War One and the Day of Infamy. And he was just showing all these cycles go on. And, you know, in other circles, I've, you know, different things that I've like looked into keep talking about how we're on this cycle of change, the shift that we're all going through. And, you know, COVID being part of that change and the chain of command being part of that change. And that like we're going through these things and on the other side of it, there'll be all these changes. So we're kind of like going through, I think last week's session was talking about a fermentation process where like the old is still there, but the new is coming. And we're kind of like going through this cycle again. And that every cycle that goes on, we're raising our vibration, cycling up further spiritually, what have you. And I don't know, it just seems like the more stuff that I'm getting into and studying, astrology, stuff in Unity, A Course in Miracles, spiritualism, all this stuff just seems to be coming together and just like waking me up, you know, and I think that's part of what this whole thing is awaking all of us. Like while we were locked down and you know, in the early stages of COVID, there were these studies coming out about how people could see the Himalayan mountains and they haven't been able to see them in years because of the pollution, or seeing salmon and dolphins in the Venetian canals because the human activity had reduced so much that wildlife was able to, you know, grow and things were changing, and they're showing like pollution being down, and you could see it like, you know, in space satellites, how the pollution was being affected. And it's just like, we're just all on this big change that's going through. And it's like, it's kind of ugly right now. But like the butterfly and the, you know, the transition, what we're going to come out beautiful in the end. That's a hope and faith. That's, you know, that's all we can have, basically. But in the end, it will all be good for all of us.
You know, it's funny you say that because I have a very good friend who's an amazing astrologer. And she said to me, and don't quote me on this because she said it to me at the beginning of the year, but there's 5 planets, if I remember correctly, this year that are going into an area that they haven't been into in 500 and some years. And each one of them was an area of conflict. Like I know one was with what hasn't, well, no, let me not say that because I don't remember, but they were conflicts. And it's about the change, creating the change.
Yep. There was like
Anyone
5
else?
planets in retrograde at the beginning of the year, like just a couple weeks ago. There was 5 planets in retrograde. We've got Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn all riding together right now, which I guess has a lot to do with change. And I guess Saturn is what the patriarch, the grandfather. And I'm just starting to learn all this stuff, but I do know what you're talking about. The way these
Jupiter
planets are
blows,
affecting our world.
and Jupiter blows everything up. You know, it makes it bigger.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So, anyone else? Carol, you've been awfully quiet tonight. And Terry, you've been awfully quiet tonight. I know you guys have something to talk about.
You guys have been great. You guys have been saying everything that's on my mind. I guess if we're going to talk about, you know, triggers, a lot of the things that were brought up are triggers of mine. But it comes down to me identifying with stuff and understanding, like you said, hey, this is a trigger. Do I step back? Do I engage? Certain things I still feel like I need to engage in, but other things I can kind of pick and choose my battles, I'll say. So certain things I think require a response, not necessarily, you know, starting off with a fight, but saying, hey, here's my opinion, and then just kind of dropping that there, I guess. And then kind of removing myself, kind of, I guess, back to what Tammy said, like, you just kind of comment and then people are like, well, no, you told me your opinion, so now we must debate. And I'm like, no, I didn't put my opinion there for a debate. Just, here you go. So I guess it's been a lot of step back, identify from the outside. Okay, do you want to engage in this, or is this something that can be left with what you've already said, or what the universe and or the other, Facebook person will say? Because I'm not the only person out there with my beliefs, so I'm sure that if I don't comment, the next person will.
And you know what has gotten me? Okay, I'm going to admit to this. So let's say there's a topic, right? And we know something to be absolute fact. Well, there can be writings that are skewed this way or skewed that way or that way or that way. Things can be skewed. But when there's something that we know is absolute fact, I like to live my life like a boardroom. And this is how I get in trouble. Because I've found very young that if I live like a boardroom, and let's say I'm having a conversation with you and we're at opposite ends, if we can both be passionate and then at the end walk away without any collateral damage, what's going to happen during that passionate conversation is you might like your idea and I might like mine. But through that conversation, we're going to realize one of us is going to go, oh, I didn't think about that. Or the other one's going to go, oh, I didn't think about that. Or we're going to realize that the actual answer is a combination of both ideas. And so what I found is I learn. So what suckers me in every time is, okay, let's talk about it. Okay, this is my position. What's yours? Well, that doesn't work very well. At least not on social media. So yeah, I've kind of in the last few days learned like I probably shouldn't do that on social media. Because you can't see the person and you can't the tone of voice, and like so much gets lost, and then people get angry, and including maybe me, and yeah, it just goes south really quickly, and it's not pretty.
Yeah, I find the same thing even like anything through type. So social media, text messages, whatever. So if I'm having like some type of disagreement in text message, I'm going to pick up the phone and be like, what is happening? I don't understand. And instead of like jumping down the next person's throat of being like, how dare you say this to me? And they're just like, I just use proper punctuation. What are you talking about? Like, I'm so sorry. So instead of, taking that into, personally all the time, same with social media. Like if I know the person, I usually try to reach out to them privately to be like, hey, like, it seems like you and I got into a disagreement, like in the comments section, which is not something that I'm trying to do. So I wanted to take it offline, see how are you doing? What's happening, do we want to talk about it, do we not? And also then it comes down to as well, it's if it is a trigger of mine, and if that in my mind anyway, and whether it be in the real world, if it comes down to right and wrong and you're not on my side of right after a certain point, I feel like, okay, I've tried to discuss, there's still combativeness, and then kind of being like, okay, I'm going to take a step back from you as a person. I send you love, I send you healing, and I hope that, in the future this can be resolved as to your beliefs versus mine, because that is not what my goal was, and kind of leaving the scenario as the bigger person. So always trying to reach out to them to see, do you have an explanation as to why you said it that way? And then kind of looping it back into, well, no, they didn't. They truly meant how I took it. I don't like that. And then kind of, it comes back to, I've kind of grown as stepping back. Earlier, beginning of quarantine me, I would be the kind of person that I was like, charge, I must put my information out there. And now I'm like, no, step back, patience.
I must charge, and I need to bring the cannons, and I need to bring the nuclear bombs,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the submarines need to fire rockets in. And yes,
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you actually a quick story about how it did work out, where two people, were able to talk it out. But I have a question for you first. What do you do for a living?
My job title is long and crazy, but basically I am a trainer for a department of a call center, and they do like very specific things for their
I knew it had something to
role.
do with communication.
Yeah. Oh, can you tell? Because I'm a talker.
No, Spirit just conveyed to me it had something to do with communication. So there's another medium, a male, and I had said something. I don't even remember what the post was, what the topic was. I don't remember it, but it was in the last few days. And we started to like call each other out on things. But do you know what? In the end, we came together. And now we're talking. And, it's actually probably going to form a friendship, which I hope it does. I look forward to it. But, that's one of the cases where when people realize and they both take responsibility for their parts and they say, hey, listen, this was my part, I apologize. The other person says, well, this was my part, I apologize. Then they can come together and maybe even develop a really neat friendship. Oh, imagine that. Yes, Jack.
I think too sometimes people get so attached to their beliefs or their ideals or their, or what point they're trying to get across, and they can't let it go. They can't let it go enough to, like, they're so attached to it that they feel like they need to convince the other person, and they can't just get to a point where, you can say, well, okay, I don't think that's not what I think, but it's okay, you can think that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, you
People
know
have
what happens,
no
right?
trouble with that.
You know what happens, right?
What?
You got that Paul Revere thing going on, and you're whipping the horse, and you're going at it, and you're yeehaw. Well, it's kind of hard to come to a stop. Jack's looking at me like, what?
Yeah, I know, like,
In other words,
What? I understand what you're saying.
yeah, I mean, you're going for it, and before you know it, you're riding that Paul Revere ride. You're whipping the horse, go faster, and charge, and it's kind of hard to stop and back it up. I mean, you're into it, the horse is into it, the army's going with you.
Yeah, it takes on a life of its own for sure.
Yeah, and then it's kind of hard to just stop and whip the white flag up and say, whoa, let's call a truce here. It happens, Terry, we haven't heard from you. Do you have anything to add, hon?
I just mind my own business.
There's like, I'm staying in my lane.
I kind of don't engage, and I'm used to that from my own sister. It's better off not to say anything. And everybody's got their own opinion. And even if I don't agree, I'm better off keeping it to myself. So I do. And I keep my vibration up because of that.
Mhm.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Does that rub off? Like if I come over there and I rub on, will it rub off?
It's not going to rub off on
Probably.
Okay, I'll be over tomorrow.
Yeah, I've just through everything. I've just chose not to listen, keep myself safe, and I avoid everybody else's opinions. And I've been a happy camper. And I'm grateful for that. I can't complain. I miss my friends. I miss Tammy. I miss my hugs. I miss Carol. But at least we have this, and that's where, you know. Yeah, I listen to everybody, and I'm like, I just stay out of it. That's all.
I'm coming over tomorrow. I'll be right over. What do you want me to bring for lunch?
You might have to stay there a while.
For some reason, I'll be at the chiropractor. Sorry.
That's okay. I'll be waiting at the front door.
All right, there you go.
I'll bring, Jack says I may have to be there a while. I'll bring the motor home. I'll park in the front yard. No worries.
You'll have to quarantine for 2 weeks if you come here.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. That's why I'll have the motor home.
True.
No, what I have learned in the last couple days is instead of going on social media, pick up a book. If I'm going to read on social media, I can read a book and I can get positive information instead of getting into, pissing matches that aren't going to go anywhere anyways. It's just sapping energy.
Yeah.
So if anybody doesn't have anything more to add, what I'd like to do is I would like to end this on a positive note, on a note of gratitude and a full heart and what have you, which is, if there's one thing that all of this has brought about for me, I got to meet all of you. I got to meet all of you, and I've started developing relationships with all of you. And you know what? It may sound sappy, but it makes it all worthwhile. And, I thank you guys. I really do look forward to seeing you guys each week.
Thank you for doing that.
Yes,
Oh.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure, really. The crew and I, we love it. We love interacting and we love being honest and saying, hey, we're spiritual, but we have flaws. We're flawed. We're works in progress. And I don't have a problem saying that. So I want to thank you guys, and may everybody have a good night. And you guys, do me a favor. If there's any topics you guys have a burning desire on, let us know. Because we're open. We're wide open. And if we don't have the knowledge, I will find somebody who does. Okay? So please feel free to shoot me a quick message and say, hey, can we do this topic? Can we do that topic? And I'll make it happen.
Okay.
And Jack will make it happen, and Leanne will make it happen. And it kind of helps us too, because then we don't have to always come up with the topic either.
Kick it around.
All right. So everybody have an amazing night, and may your week be as amazing as each one of you.
Oh my God, it's only Monday.
That's a lot to live for.
I feel like it's been a week already.
Yeah, but guess what? We have looking forward to next Monday.
I know. That's a good thing.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye,
Good night.
everybody.
Take
Good
care.
night. Thank you.
Bye.